The galaxy had a question that nobody could answer. For 300 years, humans had lived among the stars. They had joined the Galactic Confederation, a group of 47 different alien species who worked together in peace. They had built colonies on distant worlds. They had created one of the largest fleets in known space. But in all that time, humans had never once started a war. Admiral Aura found this very strange. He was a species that had conquered dozens of worlds over thousands of years. There were tall creatures with 4 eyes and scales that changed color with their emotions. They believed that power meant taking what you wanted. They did not understand patience or restraint. Aura stood on his flagship, the Crimson Fang, looking at reports about human colonies. His second-in-command, a younger named Al, stood beside him. "Look at these numbers," Aura said. "The humans have been attacked 17 times since they joined the Confederation. 17 times. Pirates raided their ships. Other species invaded their colonies. They were pushed and tested again and again." "And what did they do?" Al asked. "They defended themselves. They pushed the attackers back. Then they negotiated peace treaties." Aura's scales shifted to a confused gray color. "Every single time they only defended. They never attacked first. They never took revenge. They never conquered the species that hurt them." Al made a sound of disgust. "They must be cowards. They are afraid to fight." "No," Aura shook his large head. "I watched the recordings of their defensive station. Do you know what happened there? 200 human soldiers held that station against 3,000 warriors for 11 days. They fought until their ammunition was gone. Then they fought with knives, then with their bare hands. When reinforcements finally arrived, only 31 humans were still alive. But they had not surrendered. They had not retreated." He turned to face Al directly. "Cowards do not fight like that. Something else is happening here. Something we do not understand." Far across the galaxy, on the planet Earth, Admiral Laura was thinking about the same things. She sat in her office at the United Terran Command Headquarters in Geneva. The building was old but full of advanced technology. Screens covered the walls, showing information from across human space. Laura was 57 years old. Her hair had turned gray early in her career, and she kept it cut short. Her blue eyes were calm but watchful. She had served in the Terran Navy for 35 years. She had seen many things in that time. Her aide, Commander Tors, walked into the office with a tablet in his hand. He was a younger man, still in his 30s, with dark hair and a serious face. "Admiral, we have a problem," he said. "Tell me." "They are gathering ships near the Orion border. Our scouts have counted 12 carrier groups so far, at least 200 support vessels." Leaned back in her chair. "That is a lot of ships for a peaceful patrol." "Yes, ma'am. And their ambassador has been making demands in diplomatic channels. They want access to the Helios mining routes." The Helios routes were important. They led to asteroid fields rich in rare minerals that powered starship engines. Currently, human ships controlled those routes. They wanted that to change. "What happens if we say no?" asked. Tors looked uncomfortable. The ambassador said there would be consequences. He did not explain what that meant. Was quiet for a moment. She stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the sun was setting over the Swiss mountains. The sky was painted in shades of orange and red. "Commander, do you know why humans never start wars?" Tors seemed surprised by the question. "I suppose because we prefer peace, ma'am." "That is part of it," turned to face him. "But the real reason is older than space travel. It comes from our own history, back when we only lived on Earth." She walked to her desk and touched a control. A holographic display appeared, showing images from human history. Wars, battles, cities in flames, people suffering. "Before we reached the stars, humans fought each other constantly. We had 2 world wars that killed hundreds of millions of people. We created weapons that could destroy entire cities in seconds. We came very close to ending our own species." Tors watched the images, with a troubled expression. When we finally united and reached out to the galaxy, we made a promise to ourselves, continued. We would never start a war again. We would defend ourselves if attacked. We would protect our people, but we would never fire the first shot. We would never be the ones to begin the killing. But why? Tors asked. With our fleet, our technology, we could defeat almost anyone who attacked us. Why hold back? Turned off the display. Because we know what we become when we truly go to war. Not to defend, but to destroy. Not to protect, but to conquer. We know the darkness inside us, and we choose every day not to let it out. She sat back down behind her desk. The other species in the galaxy see our restraint as weakness. They think we are afraid to fight. They do not understand that we are afraid of what we might do if we stop holding back. Tors was quiet for a moment. Then he asked, and if someone pushes us too far, what happens then? Looked at him with eyes that had seen too much. Then God help them, because we will not show mercy. We will not stop until the threat is completely destroyed. That is why we work so hard to avoid that moment. That is why we always choose peace, even when war would be easier. In the Empire, Admiral Aura was making plans. He had convinced his emperor that the time was right to take the Helios roots by force. The humans would not fight back. They never did. They would make angry speeches and sign another peace treaty, just like always. He was certain of this. His intelligence officers had studied humanity for years. They had never seen the humans attack first. Not once. Not ever. What Aura did not know, what he could not understand, was that human restraint was not weakness. It was a cage that humanity had built around its own darkest nature, a cage that had held strong for 300 years. But cages can be broken. And when they break, what comes out is worse than anyone could imagine. The reports on his desk grew more alarming each day. The fleet was getting larger. Their demands were getting louder. Somewhere in the depths of space, a storm was building. Admiral could feel it coming. She hoped she was wrong. She hoped they would see reason and step back from the edge. But deep in her heart, in the part of her that remembered human history, she knew the truth. War was coming. And this time, humanity might not be able to stay in the cage. 3 months passed. The fleet continued to grow. Diplomatic talks went nowhere. The ambassador repeated the same demands again and again. Give us the Helios roots or face the consequences. Admiral sent more ships to patrol the border. She hoped the show of force would make them think twice. She was wrong. On a quiet morning, without any warning, they made their move. Captain Daniel Cole was sleeping in his quarters aboard the USS Resolute when the alarm woke him. He was out of bed and running to the bridge before his eyes were fully open. Cole was 42 years old, a career naval officer with a wife and 2 daughters back on Earth. "Report," he said as he reached the command chair. Lieutenant Amy Park was at the communications station. She was young, only 26, but she was one of the best officers Cole had ever worked with. Her face was pale as she turned to face him. "Sir, we received a distress signal from New Providence. The colony is under attack." Cole felt his blood run cold. New Providence was a peaceful farming world. 4 million people lived there, growing food for a dozen other colonies. It had almost no military presence. "Who is attacking them?" "Sir, multiple ships. They came out of hyperspace with no warning." Park's voice trembled slightly. "Captain, the Harmony Academy is on New Providence." Cole knew about the academy. It was a school for children of military personnel, a safe place where Navy families could send their kids while their parents served on distant ships. 2,000 children attended classes there. "How far are we?" Cole demanded. 4 hours at maximum speed, sir." "Then push the engines past maximum. I want every bit of power you can find." The Resolute flew through space at speeds that made the hull groan in protest. Cole paced the bridge, unable to sit still. Every minute felt like an hour. They were still too slow. When the Resolute finally dropped out of hyperspace above New Providence, Cole saw something that would haunt him for the rest of his life. The planet was burning. Great clouds of black smoke rose from the surface. Where there had once been cities, now there was only fire and rubble. They had not come to conquer, they had come to destroy. "Scan for survivors," Cole ordered, his voice barely a whisper. Park worked at her station, tears running down her face. "Sir, I am detecting massive destruction across all major population centers. The capital city is gone. The agricultural complex is gone." She stopped, her hands shaking over her controls. "Lieutenant." "The Harmony Academy, sir." Park could barely speak. "It was hit directly, multiple orbital strikes. The entire building complex is—" She could not finish. Cole understood. 2,000 children, all of them dead. "Are there any ships still in the system?" he asked. "No, sir. They left before we arrived. They wanted us to see this. They wanted us to see what they did." Cole stood completely still. Around him, his crew was crying, cursing, slamming their fists against consoles. He understood their rage. He felt it too, burning in his chest like a fire. But he was the captain. He had to stay calm, he had to think. "Open a channel to command," he said. "Priority 1. Admiral needs to see this. The whole of humanity needs to see this." The images from New Providence spread across human space within hours. People gathered around screens in their homes, in their offices, in public squares. They watched the footage of burning cities and dead children. They watched in silence. And then the silence turned to anger. On Earth, Admiral called an emergency meeting of the Terran High Command. The room was full of admirals and generals, the most powerful military leaders in human space. Their faces were hard with fury. 4 million dead, said, including 2,000 children at the Harmony Academy. They specifically targeted the school. They wanted to kill our children. General slammed his hand on the table. "This cannot stand. We must respond." "We will respond," replied. "But we must be careful. Once we take this step, there is no going back." Ambassador Henry was also in the room. He was an older man known for his calm and patience. In 30 years of diplomatic service, he had never lost his temper. But today, his hands were shaking with rage. "The Confederation Council is meeting in emergency session," said. "The ambassador claims they had no choice. He says we forced them into this by refusing their demands. He blames us for the murder of children." His voice was dangerous. "He does," took a deep breath. "I am going to address the council. I am going to tell them what humanity has decided to do." Nodded. "Go tell them the truth. Tell them all of it." Traveled to the Confederation Council chambers, a massive space station where representatives from all 47 member species gathered. When he arrived, the chamber was full. Word had spread about the attack. Everyone wanted to see how humanity would respond. The ambassador, Al, stood in the center of the room with no sign of shame or regret. "The humans were warned," he said. "They refused to negotiate. They left us no choice but to demonstrate our resolve." Walked slowly to his own speaking platform. He looked around the chamber at the dozens of alien faces watching him. Some were curious. Some were afraid. Some seemed almost amused, expecting humans to do what they always did, defend and then negotiate peace. They were about to learn how wrong they were. "For 300 years," began, his voice quiet but clear, "humanity has chosen peace. We have been attacked many times. We have always defended ourselves, and then we have offered peace. Many of you have wondered why. Some have called us weak. Others have called us afraid." He paused, looking directly at Al. "The truth is simpler. We know what we are capable of. We know what happens when humans truly go to war. We have seen it in our own history. We have lived through it. And we chose, together, to never unleash that upon the galaxy." His voice grew harder. But you, the Empire, have made that choice for us. You have murdered 4 million of our people. You have killed 2,000 of our children. You have burned our cities and laughed at our grief." He stood up. "So let me make something very clear. As of this moment, the United Terran Federation formally declares war on the Empire. Not defensive war, not measured response, total war." The chamber erupted in shocked murmurs. No one had ever heard humans speak like this. "Was not finished. We did not want this. We tried to avoid this, but you forced our hand. And now you will learn the lesson that humanity learned long ago, a lesson written in the blood of hundreds of millions of our own people." He looked around the room one final time. "You will learn what happens when you wake the sleeping giant, and I promise you, the Empire will never threaten another child again." Turned and walked out of the chamber. Behind him, the galaxy watched in stunned silence. The cage had finally broken, and humanity was free. The galaxy had never seen anything like it. Within 48 hours of the declaration of war, humanity changed. Factories that had been making civilian goods stopped their work and started building weapons. Shipyards that had been constructing peaceful exploration vessels began producing warships at an impossible speed. Mining colonies that had been selling their metals on the open market now sent everything to military production facilities. It was as if a giant machine had been sleeping for 300 years, and now it was waking up. Admiral Laura stood in the command center of the newly built TFS Vengeance. The ship was massive, larger than anything humanity had ever created before. It had been sitting in a secret shipyard, waiting for a day that everyone hoped would never come. Now that day was here. "Admiral," Commander Torres said, reading from his tablet, "we are receiving volunteer registrations from every human colony. The numbers are—" He stopped, checking the data again. "Ma'am, we have 4,000% more volunteers than normal. People are lining up at recruitment offices. Some are waiting for days." "Good," replied, "we will need them all." Across the galaxy, other species watched this transformation with growing unease. They had seen humanity at peace. They had studied human ships and human soldiers. They thought they understood human military power. They did not. The Empire had intelligence officers too, and they were sending back alarming reports. Ships that had been listed as decommissioned were suddenly appearing in human space, fully armed and ready for battle. Weapons systems that had never been used in combat were being installed on every vessel. Soldiers who had retired decades ago were putting on their uniforms again. Admiral Aura received these reports with growing concern. He had expected the humans to be angry. He had expected them to send a fleet to defend their borders. He had not expected this. "How is this possible?" he demanded. "Where are all these ships coming from?" His intelligence officer, a nervous young named Al, pulled up data on the display. "Sir, it appears the humans have been building and storing military equipment for centuries. Secret shipyards, hidden weapons facilities, underground training centers. They prepared for a war they hoped they would never have to fight." Aura stared at the numbers on the screen. If these reports were accurate, the human military was many times larger than anyone had believed. Why would they hide their true strength, he wondered. "Because they did not want anyone to know," Al answered quietly. "They wanted to be seen as peaceful. They wanted to be left alone, but they never stopped preparing for the worst." 3 weeks after the declaration of war, the first human attack force arrived at the border. Admiral Aura had assembled 300 ships to meet them. He was confident in his numbers. The humans had brought only 90 vessels. "They are outnumbered more than 3 to 1, Al observed from beside him. "This will be a quick victory." Aura was not so sure. Something about the human formation troubled him. Their ships were arranged in a strange pattern, grouped tightly together instead of spread out for maximum coverage. "Order all ships to hold position," he commanded. Let them come to us. The human fleet approached slowly at first. Then, without warning, they accelerated to attack speed. But instead of stopping at long range to exchange fire, as every other species did in naval combat, the humans kept coming. Faster and faster. What are they doing? Al asked, confusion in his voice. Aura understood a moment too late. They are going to punch through our formation. All ships close ranks. Do not let them pass. But his orders came too slowly. The human fleet hit the formation like a fist through paper. They did not slow down. They did not stop to fight individual battles. They flew straight through the center of the enemy fleet, their weapons firing continuously in all directions. The damage was catastrophic. Ships exploded on all sides as the humans passed through them. The careful formation that Aura had built was torn apart in minutes. And then, impossibly, the human fleet turned around and came back for another pass. "This is madness," Al shouted. "No species fights like this. The casualties must be enormous." "Look at your display," Aura replied, his voice hollow with shock. "Look at how many human ships we have destroyed." Al looked. Of the 90 human vessels that had begun the attack, 83 were still operational. The humans were absorbing damage that would have crippled any other fleet. Their shields were holding under fire that should have torn them apart. Their crews were fighting through wounds and damage that should have forced retreat. They were not trying to win a battle. They were trying to annihilate an enemy. The second pass destroyed another 40 ships, then a third pass, then a fourth. After 90 minutes, it was over. The fleet had lost 167 ships out of 300. The humans had lost 12. Admiral Aura escaped on a small shuttle, watching his flagship, the Crimson Fang, break apart in a ball of fire behind him. He had commanded fleets for 50 years. He had won countless battles. He had never experienced anything like this. Back at Terran Command, Admiral received the battle report with grim satisfaction. 12 ships lost, Tors reported. 312 crew members killed. Enemy losses confirmed at 167 vessels with approximately 40,000 crew. "Begin preparations for the next phase," ordered. "We push into territory within the week." Tors hesitated. "Admiral, some of the other Confederation members are expressing concern. They say our tactics are excessive." Turn to face him. "Commander, the murdered 4 million people, including 2,000 children, to send us a message. Now we are sending them one back. This war will not end until they understand that attacking humanity has consequences. Real consequences. Permanent consequences." "Understood, ma'am." In the Confederation Council chambers, representatives from dozens of species watched the battle footage in stunned silence. They had seen wars before. They had seen violence and death and destruction. They had never seen anything like this. "The humans are not fighting to win," one ambassador whispered to another. "They are fighting to destroy. There is a rage in them that I have never witnessed." "Can anyone stop them?" the second ambassador asked. The first ambassador had no answer. He suspected that no one did. The sleeping giant had awakened, and it was angry. Very, very angry. The Battle of the Border was only the beginning. In the weeks that followed, the human military machine moved deeper into enemy territory. Admiral led the main fleet personally, and she showed no mercy. Colony after colony fell. Defense station after defense station was destroyed. The empire, which had stood for thousands of years, began to crumble. What shocked the galaxy most was not the human willingness to fight. It was how they fought. Captain Daniel Cole commanded a task force of 20 ships on the Eastern Front. After watching New Providence burn, after seeing the footage of the destroyed school, he had requested frontline duty. He wanted to be part of this. He needed to be part of this. His task force arrived at a military outpost on the edge of their core territory. The station was heavily defended, with shields and weapons that should have taken weeks to break through. Cole broke through in 6 hours. "Sir," Lieutenant Park reported from her station, "the station commander is requesting surrender. He wants to negotiate terms." Cole was quiet for a moment. The rage still burned inside him. Part of him wanted to refuse to destroy the station and everyone on it, but that part was not in control. "Accept their surrender," he said. "Process all prisoners according to standard protocols. Medical treatment for any wounded." Park looked relieved. "Yes, sir." This was the thing that confused everyone watching from outside. The humans were brutal in combat. They attacked with a fury that seemed almost insane. They took risks that other species would never consider. They accepted casualties that would have broken any other military. But when the fighting stopped, they treated their prisoners fairly. They provided food and medical care. They did not torture or execute. They followed rules that they had written hundreds of years ago, back when they only fought each other. A captured officer tried to explain this to his interrogators. "I do not understand you," he said. "You fight like monsters, you destroy everything in your path, but then you bandage our wounds and give us clean water. Why?" The human officer interviewing him, a woman named Lieutenant Sandra Hayes, considered the question carefully. "We are at war with your military," she said, "not with your species. We want to destroy your ability to hurt us. We do not want to destroy your people. But after what we did to New Providence, you have every right to take revenge." Hayes shook her head. "If we became like you, then you would have won. We refuse to let that happen." The officer had no response to this. Back at Terran Command, Admiral coordinated the largest military operation in human history. Hundreds of ships moved across dozens of fronts. Ground forces invaded worlds and defeated their armies in battle after battle. Special operations teams struck deep behind enemy lines, destroying supply depots and communication centers. They had never faced anything like this. Other species they had conquered had fought back, but eventually they had accepted defeat. They had surrendered and submitted to rule. The humans did not surrender. They did not submit. They did not even slow down. "We have lost contact with another fleet," the High Commander reported to his Emperor. "That makes 7 battle groups destroyed in the past month. Our defensive lines are collapsing everywhere." Emperor Ra Prime, ruler of the for over 200 years, listened to this news with growing despair. He had approved the attack on New Providence. He had believed it would frighten the humans into submission. He had been catastrophically wrong. "How is this possible?" he demanded. "The humans have never fought like this before. What has changed?" "Everything, Your Majesty," the High Commander replied. "Before, they were defending. Now they are attacking. Before, they were trying to end conflicts quickly with minimum damage. Now they are trying to destroy us completely. Why? We are a powerful empire. Surely they know that defeating us will cost them dearly." The High Commander lowered his eyes. "Your Majesty, I have studied human military history. 300 years ago, before they reached the stars, they fought a war among themselves. One of their nations was attacked without warning, and millions of their people were killed. What happened? That nation and its allies spent 4 years systematically destroying the nations that attacked them. They did not stop until those nations had surrendered completely. They did not rest until the leaders who started the war were dead or imprisoned." The commander paused. "Your Majesty, I believe the humans call this total war. They do not fight for territory or resources. They fight to eliminate threats permanently." The Emperor was silent for a long moment. "Can we negotiate peace?" "They have refused all diplomatic contact. Their ambassador said they will talk when our military is destroyed, and the officers who ordered the New Providence attack are surrendered for trial." "That is unacceptable." "Then the war will continue, Your Majesty, and I must be honest with you." The commander's voice was heavy. "We are losing. We will continue to lose. The humans are not going to stop. Ambassador Henry addressed the Confederation Council again, 3 months into the war. The other species wanted to understand what was happening. They wanted to know when it would end. Humanity has 3 conditions for peace, said. First, all military officers involved in the New Providence attack must be surrendered for trial. Second, the Empire will pay compensation to the families of the victims. Third, the military will be reduced to a purely defensive force. And if they refuse these terms, the ambassador asked. His expression was hard. Then we will continue fighting until there is nothing left of their military, every ship, every station, every weapons factory. We will destroy it all. That could take years. Millions could die. Millions have already died. 4 million humans on New Providence. 40,000 at the border battle. More every day. Shook his head. We did not want this war. We did everything we could to avoid it, but they chose to murder our children. Now they must face the consequences of that choice. The council chamber was silent. Every species present understood something they had not understood before. Human patience was not weakness. It was control. Control over a species that, when pushed too far, became something terrifying. They had broken that control. And now the entire galaxy was watching the price they would pay. 6 months after the attack on New Providence, Admiral Laura stood on the bridge of the TFS Vengeance above Prime itself. The planet below was the heart of an empire that had ruled for thousands of years. Its orbital defenses had been legendary, rings of weapons platforms and shield generators that no enemy had ever breached. Those defenses were gone now. The platforms floated in pieces. The generators had been destroyed. The mighty fleet, once the terror of 100 worlds, existed only in history books. Admiral, Commander Torres reported, we are receiving a transmission from the planet's surface. Emperor Ra Prime is requesting a meeting. Nodded slowly. Tell him I will meet him on neutral ground, the diplomatic station at the edge of the system. Yes, ma'am. 3 hours later, sat across a table from the Emperor. Ambassador was beside her. On the other side, Ra Prime had brought a small group of advisors, including a much-reduced Admiral Aura. The Emperor looked old. His scales, which should have been bright with color, were dull and gray. 6 months of watching his empire crumble had taken a heavy toll. You have won, he said simply. The Empire admits defeat. We will agree to whatever terms you demand. Looked at him without sympathy. Our terms are these. First, all officers who ordered or participated in the attack on New Providence will be surrendered for trial. This includes Admiral Aura. Aura flinched but did not protest. He knew what he had done. Second, the Empire will pay full compensation to every family that lost someone in the attack. The amount will be determined by our courts. The Emperor nodded slowly. Third, your military will be reduced to 1/10 its current size. You may keep enough ships to defend your core worlds, nothing more. All offensive weapons, all invasion transports, all military production facilities beyond what is needed for defense will be destroyed. These terms are very harsh, the Emperor said quietly. Leaned forward. Your Majesty, after what happened at New Providence, there were many voices in our government calling for the complete destruction of the species. Some wanted to bomb your worlds the way you bombed ours. Some wanted to hunt down every last and make sure your species never threatened anyone again. The Emperor's scales paled at these words. Admiral and I argued against that path, continued. We convinced our leaders that mercy was better than revenge, but do not mistake that mercy for weakness. If you ever attack human civilians again, if you ever hurt our children again, there will be no second chance. We will finish what you started. The Emperor was quiet for a long moment. Then he asked a question that had been troubling him since the war began. Why, you have the power to destroy us completely. Your fleet is above my people are helpless before you. Why do you choose mercy?" Admiral stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the stars burned cold and bright. "Because we have destroyed ourselves before," she said. "In our history, we have committed every terrible act you can imagine. We have burned cities. We have murdered innocents. We have tried to wipe out entire groups of our own people simply because they were different from us." She turned to face the Emperor. "When we finally reached the stars, we looked back at our history and we were ashamed. We saw all the pain we had caused, all the lives we had wasted, all the hatred we had spread. And we made a choice. We decided to be better, to show the galaxy that humans could be peaceful, cooperative, and kind." "But we broke that peace," the Emperor said. "Yes, you killed 4 million of our people. You murdered our children. You forced us to become what we promised we would never be again." His voice was heavy with sadness. "We do not enjoy this, Your Majesty. We take no pleasure in the destruction of your fleet or the deaths of your soldiers. Every life lost in this war on both sides is a tragedy." She sat back down across from him. "But we could not let your attack go unanswered. If we had done nothing, every other species in the galaxy would have learned that they could attack humanity without consequences. More children would have died. More colonies would have burned. The peace we built would have collapsed." "So you destroyed us to send a message," the Emperor said. "We destroyed your military to protect our people. The message is a side effect." Leaned forward. "Let me tell you what that message is so you can share it with the rest of the galaxy. Humanity does not start wars. We never have, and we hope we never will again. But if someone attacks our people, if someone hurts our families, if someone murders our children, we will respond with everything we have. We will not stop until the threat is eliminated. We will not rest until justice is done." The treaty was signed 1 week later. The officers responsible for New Providence were tried and executed. The Empire, once one of the most powerful forces in the galaxy, became a minor regional power, watched carefully by human observers. In the years that followed, something interesting happened. No one attacked humanity, not a single raid, not a single border incident, not a single threat. The other species of the galaxy had watched the war. They had seen what happened when humans were pushed too far. They had learned the lesson that they had paid for so dearly. Humans were peaceful. Humans were kind. Humans preferred talking to fighting and trade to conquest. But humans were also capable of terrible things when their loved ones were threatened. They could be patient for centuries, and then destroy an empire in months. They could show mercy to defeated enemies, but they could also fight with a fury that nothing in the galaxy could match. Admiral retired 5 years after the war ended. She spent her remaining years working for peace, trying to build bridges between species and prevent future conflicts. She never forgot what she had seen and done, and she never stopped hoping that humanity would never have to fight like that again. Captain Daniel Cole eventually became an admiral himself. He often visited New Providence, which had been rebuilt as a memorial to those who died. He would stand in front of the monument to the Harmony Academy and remember the children who had been lost. And in diplomatic halls across the galaxy, ambassadors' words were repeated and remembered. Humanity does not start wars, but heaven help anyone who forces them to.